She never meant to fall asleep on a stranger's shoulder. But when the plane touched down and she finally opened her eyes, the woman who had spent her life in glass towers and boardrooms found herself crying. Not out of embarrassment, but because of what that single dad sitting beside her had done while she slept. This isn't just a story about an awkward flight. It's a story about kindness, the kind that changes people, softens hearts, and reminds us that sometimes the people we least expect to meet are the ones who show us what really matters. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below if stories like this touch your heart. You're watching TribeAfriTales, where we share real, powerful stories that remind us of the goodness still left in the world. It was a cold morning at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, the kind of November morning where the sky was still dark at 6 a.m. and the terminal lights reflected off the polished floors like stars trapped in stone. Flight 292 was boarding for Washington, D.C., and in seat 14B sat Sanaa Price, the 38-year-old CEO of a fast-growing tech company that specialized in financial software for minority-owned businesses. Her assistant had booked her a last-minute flight after a week full of investor meetings and sleepless nights. She was tired, the kind of tired that coffee couldn't fix, the kind that settled deep in your bones and made even blinking feel like effort. Her dark brown skin showed the signs of exhaustion, despite the expertly applied makeup, and there were shadows under her eyes that no concealer could completely hide. Dressed in her signature navy suit, tailored perfectly to her slim frame, with her natural hair pulled back into an elegant low bun, her phone never left her hand. Emails, contracts, projections, her whole life was lived through that glowing screen. To her, time was money, and small talk was a waste of both. Success had cost her dearly: 2 failed relationships, estrangement from her parents who thought she'd become too busy for family, and friendships that had withered from neglect. As passengers shuffled in, pulling rolling suitcases and juggling coffee cups, Sanaa barely looked up. She just hoped the person next to her wouldn't talk much. She had a presentation to review, a conference call scheduled for mid-flight, and approximately zero interest in chit-chat about weather or weekend plans. Then came seat 14A. A black man in his mid-30s with kind brown eyes, warm sienna-toned skin, and a few days' worth of stubble appeared in the aisle. He wore jeans and a simple gray sweater that had seen better days, and he held the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been older than 6. She had the most beautiful dark brown skin, big curly hair tied into 2 puffs with bright pink ribbons, and a pink unicorn backpack that looked almost bigger than she was. Her wide eyes took in everything: the overhead bins, the seats, the other passengers, with the wonder only a child could muster. "Hi there," the man said, his voice deep and warm as he smiled at Sanaa while helping his daughter settle by the window. "Sorry if she gets a little restless. Long flight for little legs." Sanaa gave a polite nod, her eyes still on her phone, her fingers still typing. She'd perfected the art of the dismissive acknowledgement years ago. "I'm Malik," he added, securing his daughter's seatbelt with practiced hands. "And this is Zuri." The little girl gave a shy wave, her small hand barely emerging from the sleeve of her purple jacket. "Hi," she whispered, her voice small and sweet. Sanaa offered a faint smile and went back to her emails, but something about the way Malik gently adjusted his daughter's blanket, a worn but clean fleece with cartoon characters on it, caught her eye. It was tender, patient, the kind of love she rarely saw in her world of deadlines and deals. The way he tucked it around her small shoulders, the way he brushed a curl from her forehead, the way he asked, "Comfortable, baby girl?" in a voice so soft it was almost a whisper. "Yes, Daddy," Zuri replied, already clutching a stuffed bunny that had seen better days, its ears worn soft from years of loving. As the plane prepared for takeoff, the flight attendants went through their safety demonstrations. Malik pointed things out to Zuri in a quiet voice, explaining what the oxygen masks were for, why they needed to keep their seatbelts on, how the plane would feel when it took off. He was patient, thorough, making sure she understood without scaring her. "Will it be bumpy?" Zuri asked, her eyes wide. "Maybe a little when we go through clouds," Malik said, taking her small hand in his larger one. "But Daddy's right here. You're safe with me, always." Sanaa found herself listening despite herself. There was something about his voice, steady, reassuring, full of a quiet strength that came from somewhere deep. As the plane took off, Zuri pressed her face to the window, watching Atlanta grow smaller below them. "Look, Daddy, the cars look like toys." "They do, don't they?" Malik said, leaning over to look with her. "And see those buildings? That's where we live, somewhere down there." "Can you see our house?" "Not from up here, baby girl, but it's there, waiting for us when we come back." Sanaa noticed he didn't say home. He said house. There was a difference, a subtle one that spoke volumes. About 30 minutes into the flight, once they'd reached cruising altitude, Zuri fell asleep almost immediately. The early morning wake-up had clearly exhausted her. Her head rested on her dad's arm, the stuffed bunny clutched tight to her chest, her breathing deep and even. Malik looked out the window, lost in thought. His profile was striking. Strong jawline, thoughtful expression, a sadness around his eyes that he probably thought he hid well. He didn't touch his phone once. He just sat there, one arm supporting his sleeping daughter, the other resting on the armrest between him and Sanaa, his hand open, relaxed. Sanaa tried to focus on her work, but she kept stealing glances at them. There was something about the scene that tugged at her. This father and daughter, clearly not wealthy based on their worn clothes and the fact that they were in economy class, but rich in something she'd lost somewhere along her climb to the top. About an hour into the flight, the cabin lights dimmed for those who wanted to rest. The breakfast service had just finished. Sanaa had declined the rubbery eggs and sad fruit cup, and the hum of the engine became almost hypnotic. Sanaa felt her eyelids growing heavy. She'd been up since 3 a.m., had slept maybe 4 hours the night before, and the exhaustion was finally catching up to her. She told herself she'd just close her eyes for a minute, just a brief rest, before she went back to her work. Before she knew it, she had drifted off, her head tilting to the side, coming to rest right onto Malik's shoulder. She woke up nearly 2 hours later, startled and disoriented. The first thing she registered was warmth and the soft fabric of someone's sweater against her cheek. Then reality crashed in. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she whispered, sitting upright so fast she almost gave herself whiplash. Her heart pounded with embarrassment. Sanaa Price, CEO, who commanded boardrooms and closed million-dollar deals, had just drooled on a stranger's shoulder. Actually drooled. She could feel the dampness on her chin. Malik chuckled softly, the sound warm and non-judgmental. "No worries at all. You looked like you needed the rest." "I'm mortified," Sanaa said, quickly wiping her face, trying to regain some semblance of dignity. I don't usually—" "Really, it's fine," Malik said, his smile genuine. "I've had Zuri sleep on me for years. One more person isn't going to hurt." But then Sanaa noticed something that made her freeze. Her phone, which had been slipping from her lap when she fell asleep, she vaguely remembered that last moment of consciousness when she'd felt it sliding, was now plugged into a power bank that wasn't hers. A small, slightly battered portable charger that definitely hadn't been in her possession before. I think this is your charger," she said, her voice uncertain, her perfectly manicured fingers touching the device. Malik smiled, a little sheepish. "Yeah, your battery was at 3%. I saw it slipping and the screen was flashing that low battery warning. Didn't want you waking up to a dead phone. Figured you probably had important stuff on there." Sanaa blinked, genuinely surprised. In her world, people took. They didn't give. They competed. They looked for advantages. The idea that someone would use their own resources to help her, a complete stranger, without expecting anything in return, seemed almost foreign. "Thank you," she said quietly, and for the first time in years, she meant it with her whole heart. That was really thoughtful. "No problem," Malik said easily, adjusting his arm where Zuri still slept peacefully. "We all need a little help sometimes." Something about that simple statement cracked something open inside Sanaa. When was the last time she'd accepted help? When was the last time she'd needed to? She'd built her entire identity around being self-sufficient, needing no one, depending on nothing but her own drive and intelligence. They started talking after that. Slowly, at first, tentatively, like two people who'd forgotten how to have a real conversation, but then more easily, more naturally. "So what takes you to Washington?" Malik asked. "Business conference," Sanaa said. "I run a tech company, financial software." She waited for the usual reaction, the change in demeanor when people realized she was wealthy. The sudden interest, the calculating looks. But Malik just nodded. "That sounds interesting. You must be good at what you do." "I work hard at it," she said carefully. "That's not the same thing as enjoying it, though, is it?" Malik observed, and the gentleness in his voice made the observation feel less like a criticism and more like genuine curiosity. Sanaa found herself pausing. When was the last time someone had asked her if she enjoyed her work? "No," she admitted. "It's not. I used to love it when I was building it from nothing. Now it's just a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations." "I get that," Malik said. "Different scale, but I get it. Sometimes the thing you thought would make you happy ends up being another weight to carry." She learned that Malik was a single dad raising Zuri on his own since his wife passed away 3 years earlier in a car accident. A drunk driver had run a red light on a Tuesday afternoon while his wife, Aisha, was on her way to pick up Zuri from daycare. She died on impact, and Malik's whole world had shattered. "She was the love of my life," he said, his voice thick with emotion even after all this time, glancing at his daughter sleeping peacefully beside him. "We met in college, got married young, had Zuri when we were barely making ends meet. But we were happy. Really, truly happy." He paused, his jaw working like he was trying to keep his composure. "I still miss her every day. Sometimes I turn to tell her something funny Zuri did. And then I remember. It hits me all over again, like the first day. But Zuri, she's my reason to keep going. Some days, when the grief gets so heavy I can barely breathe, I look at her and I see Aisha's smile. I hear her laugh. And I know I have to keep going, because our daughter needs me. Because that's what love means. You keep going even when you don't want to." Sanaa listened. Really listened in a way she hadn't listened to anyone in years. She wasn't thinking about her next meeting or her email inbox or her stock portfolio. She was present, fully present, with this man's pain and strength and love. "I'm so sorry," she said, and the words felt inadequate. "I can't imagine how hard that's been." "Thank you," Malik said simply. "Some days are harder than others. Birthdays, anniversaries, the first day of school, all the moments Aisha should be here for. But we make it work. We have to." Something about his honesty, his vulnerability, made Sanaa want to open up too. She found herself telling him things she'd never told anyone, not her therapist, not her assistant, not the few friends she had left. "My work has consumed my life," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I built this company from nothing, poured everything into it. And somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I haven't seen my parents in months, even though they live 30 minutes away. I missed my mother's birthday last month because of a board meeting. She sent me a text saying she understood, but I could hear the hurt in those words." She looked down at her hands, at the expensive manicure and the designer watch. "I thought success would feel different. I thought when I finally made it, when I finally had the money and the recognition and the respect, I'd feel fulfilled. But I don't. I feel empty. Malik nodded slowly, not offering empty platitudes or easy solutions. I think sometimes we chase things thinking they'll make us whole, and then we get them and realize the hole is still there. That the thing we were really looking for was never about money or success. It was about connection, about being seen, about mattering to someone. Do you have that? Sanaa asked. That connection? I have Zuri, Malik said, brushing a gentle hand over his daughter's curls. And I have a few good friends from church who check on us. My mom helps out when she can, though she's getting older. It's not the same as having Aisha, but it's enough. It has to be enough. For the first time in a long time, Sanaa felt human. Not CEO Sanaa Price with her corner office and her power suits and her reputation for being brilliant, but cold. Just Sanaa, a woman who was tired and lonely and starting to wonder if she'd traded the things that mattered for things that ultimately didn't. When the flight attendant came by with the snack and beverage cart, Malik studied the menu card in the seat pocket with careful attention. Sanaa noticed he did the math in his head, calculating. Can I get a juice box for my daughter? He asked the attendant, a cheerful woman with kind eyes. Apple, if you have it. Of course, honey. And for you? Just water, please. Thank you. The attendant handed him the items, and Sanaa watched as he declined anything for himself beyond the free water. When she offered him the option to purchase a sandwich or snack box, he shook his head with a polite smile. I'm good, thank you. But Sanaa had noticed his stomach growl quietly about 20 minutes earlier. She'd noticed the way he'd tightened his belt by one notch that morning. She noticed a lot of things she normally wouldn't have paid attention to. When Malik excused himself to use the restroom about 30 minutes later, carefully extracting his arm from under Zuri without waking her, a maneuver he'd clearly perfected over the years, Sanaa quietly got the flight attendant's attention. The gentleman in 14A, she said quietly. Can you bring him a meal when he comes back? And upgrade it to first-class service if you can, whatever the best option is. Charge it to my credit card. The attendant smiled warmly, understanding passing between two women who recognized kindness when they saw it. Of course, ma'am. I'll take care of it. When Malik returned, sliding carefully back into his seat without disturbing Zuri, his tray table had been lowered and set with a proper meal. A hot sandwich, a side salad, chips, a cookie, and a soda. It was the first-class service, not the standard economy offering. I didn't order this, he said, confused, looking at the spread before him. Sanaa didn't look up from her phone, affecting casual indifference even though her heart was pounding. Consider it my way of saying thanks. For the charger, and for sharing your story, and for letting me use your shoulder. Malik looked at the food, then at her, and she saw his eyes glisten slightly. It was just a meal, nothing expensive by her standards. But she understood it meant something more to him. It meant being seen, being valued, being cared for when he spent all his time caring for everyone else. Thank you, he said, his voice thick. You didn't have to do this. I know, Sanaa said, finally meeting his eyes. I wanted to. He ate slowly, savoring each bite in a way that told her this was a rare treat. When Zuri woke up about halfway through his meal, she rubbed her eyes and looked at the food with wide eyes. Daddy, that looks good. Want to share? Malik immediately offered, breaking the sandwich in half. No, baby girl, you have your snacks in the bag. This is for Daddy. But he still gave her half the cookie, and Sanaa noticed. Of course he did. That was who Malik Rivers was, a man who would give his last bite to his daughter without thinking twice. As the flight continued, they talked about everything, about raising children. Sanaa admitted she'd always thought she'd have kids someday, but someday kept getting pushed back for one more deal, one more acquisition, one more quarter of growth. About chasing dreams. Malik shared that he'd wanted to be a teacher once, had even started a degree in education, but had to drop out when Aisha got pregnant, and they needed money more than they needed his dreams. "I work 2 jobs now," he said, not complaining, just stating facts. "One at a hardware store during the day, I'm assistant manager there, and another delivering packages in the evenings and weekends, whenever my mom can watch Zuri. It's not what I imagined my life would be, but it pays the bills." "What about Zuri's school?" Sanaa asked. Malik's face softened, pride evident in every line. "She goes to a small private academy. It's not fancy or anything, not like those elite schools with the big campuses. But it's good, really good. Small classes, teachers who care about the kids as individuals. They have an excellent reading program, and Zuri's already reading above her grade level." He pulled out his phone, an older model, the screen slightly cracked, and showed Sanaa a picture. Zuri in a school uniform, her hair in neat braids, holding up a certificate for Most Improved Reader. "She loves it there," Malik continued, his voice full of warmth. "Comes home every day excited to tell me what she learned. The tuition is steep, though. I'll do whatever it takes to keep her there. She deserves the best chance at life, even if I have to work myself to the bone to give it to her." Sanaa felt something tug inside her chest, sharp and insistent. Here was a man who had lost almost everything: his wife, his dreams, his financial stability, but still radiated hope, who worked 2 jobs and sacrificed his own meals so his daughter could have juice boxes and good schools, who gave everything and asked for nothing. She couldn't remember the last time she'd met someone so genuine, so purely good. "You're a good father," she said quietly. "I'm trying to be," Malik replied. "That's all any of us can do, right? Just try our best and hope it's enough." As they began their descent into Washington, D.C., Zuri woke up and stretched, rubbing her sleepy eyes with small fists. She looked at Sanaa with the directness only children possess and smiled. "Did you sleep good?" she asked innocently, her words slightly jumbled in that charming way of 6-year-olds. Sanaa laughed softly, genuinely. "I did, thanks to your dad's shoulder." "Daddy has good shoulders," Zuri said seriously. "They're good for sleeping and for sitting on when I can't see at parades." "I bet they are," Sanaa agreed, catching Malik's eye. He was trying not to smile too widely. When the plane landed and passengers began the usual scramble for overhead bins, Sanaa found herself not wanting this flight to end. This unexpected connection, this brief glimpse into a life so different from her own, had cracked something open inside her that she'd thought was permanently sealed. "Hey," Sanaa said before they parted ways in the aisle, her voice uncertain in a way it rarely was. "Do you have a business card or something? An email?" Malik chuckled, hoisting Zuri's backpack onto his shoulder while holding her hand. "I'm afraid I don't have fancy cards like you probably do, just a guy with a phone number." "Write it down then," Sanaa said, surprising herself with her insistence. "Maybe I can send you something." He hesitated, and she could see him wrestling with pride and practicality. Finally, he pulled out a pen from his pocket and scribbled his number on a napkin from the seat pocket. "Sure," he said, handing it to her. "But you really don't have to. You've already been more than kind." "I want to," she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. They said goodbye at baggage claim. Sanaa watched as Malik lifted Zuri's small rolling suitcase, pink with unicorn stickers, and took his daughter's hand. Zuri turned and waved, her smile bright and uninhibited. "Bye, Miss Sanaa. Thank you for being Daddy's friend." Something about that simple statement, being Daddy's friend, made Sanaa's eyes water. When was the last time someone had called her a friend? When was the last time she'd been worthy of that title? As she watched them walk away, Malik bending down to listen to something Zuri was saying excitedly, something inside Sanaa shifted fundamentally. She stood there in the baggage claim area, surrounded by hurrying travelers and rolling suitcases, and realized how far she'd drifted from the things that really mattered. The next morning, Sanaa sat in her hotel room overlooking the Washington Monument. She was supposed to be reviewing her presentation for the conference, but she couldn't focus. She kept thinking about Malik and Zuri. About a father who worked 2 jobs and still found energy to be patient and kind. About a little girl who'd lost her mother, but still had the capacity to smile at strangers. She thought about her own mother, who she hadn't called in 3 weeks. About her father, who'd stopped inviting her to Sunday dinners because she never came. About the life she'd built that looked perfect from the outside, but felt hollow on the inside. That afternoon, instead of networking at the conference reception, Sanaa made a call to her accountant, then to her lawyer. Then she sat down and wrote a letter by hand, something she hadn't done in years. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday afternoon, Malik came home from his shift at the hardware store to find an envelope in his mailbox. Thick, expensive paper, the kind that meant something important. He opened it while Zuri did her homework at the kitchen table of their small 2-bedroom apartment, and what he found made him sink into a chair, his hands shaking. "Dear Malik," the letter read in elegant handwriting, "I haven't stopped thinking about our flight. In a few hours, you showed me more kindness than I've experienced in years. You shared your story, your struggles, your love for your daughter, and you reminded me what truly matters in this life. Enclosed is something that might help with Zuri's education. Please don't think of it as charity. Think of it as an investment in kindness, in people like you who remind the rest of us what really matters. Think of it as paying forward the grace you showed me when you could have been resentful of a stranger sleeping on your shoulder, when you could have ignored my dying phone, when you could have kept your story to yourself. Your strength inspires me, your love for Zuri humbles me, and your willingness to still see good in the world after everything you've lost gives me hope that maybe I haven't drifted too far to find my way back. With deep gratitude and respect, Sanaa Price." The check was for $25,000, made out to Malik Rivers with a memo line that read, "For Zuri's future." Malik stared at it, then read the letter again, then stared at the check again. $25,000, enough to pay Zuri's tuition for years, enough to stop working the second job, enough to breathe. "Daddy, why are you crying?" Zuri asked, looking up from her math worksheet with concern. Malik wiped his eyes, then picked up his daughter and hugged her tight. "Because, sweetheart, I just got reminded that there really are good people out there, really, truly good people." "Like you?" Zuri asked. "No, baby girl, better than me." But that wasn't the end of the story. It was barely the beginning. Over the following months, Sanaa found herself changing in ways she never expected. She started leaving work at 5 instead of 8. She had dinner with her parents every Sunday. She donated significant portions of her wealth to organizations supporting single parents and children who'd lost parents. She and Malik stayed in touch, texts at first, then phone calls, then video chats where Zuri would show Sanaa her latest school projects and Malik would share updates on their lives. "You changed my life," Sanaa told him during one of those calls, 6 months after their flight. "I think it was mutual," Malik replied with that warm smile she'd come to cherish. 8 months after their flight, Sanaa was speaking at a leadership conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. When asked about the most important lesson she'd ever learned in her career, she didn't mention business strategies or market analysis or innovation. Instead, she told the story of Flight 292 from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. She told the story of a single dad and his little girl who reminded her that success means nothing without compassion. She told the story of how she'd been so focused on climbing that she'd forgotten why she was climbing in the first place. She ended her talk with these words, her voice strong and clear. "Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, offering your shoulder, sharing a charger, listening to someone's story, can change more than a moment. They can change a life. They can remind someone who they used to be before the world made them hard. They can show you what really matters." I thought I had everything. The company, the money, the respect. But I was empty. It took a man who had lost everything to show me what it means to be rich. Rich in love, rich in purpose, rich in the things that actually matter when your life is measured not in dollars, but in the impact you had on others. So I challenge you today. Don't wait for a wake-up call. Don't wait until you're asleep on a stranger's shoulder to realize you've been sleepwalking through your own life. Look around you. See the people you've stopped seeing. Value the things you've stopped valuing. Live like what you do matters. Because it does, just not always in the ways we think. The audience gave her a standing ovation, not because she was a powerful CEO, but because in that moment she was simply human, open, vulnerable, and real. Several people were crying, others were nodding, recognition in their eyes. They'd all been there, all lost themselves in the chase for success. As she left the stage, her phone buzzed with a message from Malik. She smiled before even reading it. Just wanted to say thank you again. Zuri got her report card yesterday. Straight A's. She says she wants to be a pilot someday. Says she wants to fly planes so she can help people get to the people they love. Sanaa's eyes filled with tears as she typed her response. Tell her I believe in her, and thank you for believing in me. His response came quickly. Always. That's what friends do. Friends. Sanaa smiled, tucking her phone away. She had a friend, a real friend, not a networking contact or a business associate, but someone who saw her, really saw her, and cared about her not for what she had, but for who she was becoming. That evening, Sanaa called her mother. Mom, I was wondering if you and Dad wanted to come visit me next weekend. I know I've been absent. I know I've made you feel like you're not important to me. But you are. You're everything. And I'm ready to start showing you that. Her mother's voice cracked with emotion. Sanaa, baby, we'd love that. We'd love that so much. As Sanaa ended the call and looked out at the Charlotte skyline, she thought about how strange and wonderful life could be. How a random seat assignment on a random flight could lead to such profound change. How falling asleep on a stranger's shoulder could wake you up to what really mattered. Maybe kindness doesn't just ripple outward. Maybe it takes flight, soaring beyond what we can see, touching lives in ways we'll never fully understand. And maybe, just maybe, the most important meetings aren't the ones we schedule in boardrooms, but the ones that happen at 30,000 feet, when we're tired enough to let our guards down and human enough to let someone in. If this story touched your heart, take a moment today to do something kind for a stranger, for a friend, or even for yourself. You never know whose life you might be changing. You never know who might be falling asleep on your shoulder, trusting you with their vulnerability. Thank you for watching TribeAfriTales, where every story reminds us kindness still matters. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that inspire hope and healing. Because in a world that often feels too hard, too cold, too focused on what divides us, we need reminders of what connects us, our shared humanity, our capacity for compassion, and our ability to change someone's life with the smallest acts of love.